and that will be at the background. With this background, let us continue our practice. As we repeat every day, first we focus our mind on the breath. As we breathe in and out, we notice the breath functions. We see the breath touching our nostrils and then expanding our chest area and abdominal area. And as we breathe out, chest area contract, abdominal area contract, the breath leaves the nostrils. These functions invariably take place every time we breathe in and out. At the same time, we notice feelings, rises and falls, perception rises and falls, volitions rise and fall, consciousness rise and falls, and they continuously rise and fall while we are breathing in and out. Noticing this rising and falling of all this aggregate, the breath, feeling, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness are the five aggregates. They also rise and fall along with the breath. And then noticing this reality, the mind does not try to hold on to anything, because trying to hold on to anything is a futile effort, and therefore mind let go of desire to hold on to anything. That is one of the hindrances, kama chanda. Then we, as body, mind, breath, everything relax. The mind is not rigid, uptight, it is relaxed. In the relaxed state of body and mind and breath, metta feeling arises. Noticing metta feeling, we get even more encouragement to practice. And then compassion arises when restlessness and worry fades away, when everything is calm, relaxed, peaceful. There is no room for restlessness and worry to stay. It fades away. And then we notice our mind gets more courage, more effort, more energy. When energy arises, sleepiness and drowsiness fade away. And then whatever doubt we had regarding the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, that doubt also fade away. So when sleepiness and drowsiness, restlessness and worry, greed, hatred and doubt, when these hindrances fade away, the mind gets more calm, peaceful, and filled with joy. This joy is the result of positive results. Then arise more calm, relaxed state. That is what is called tranquility or passaddhi. This is what in anapanasati, and so forth. Buddha said, Passam bhayankaya sankharang, asya sissameti sikkati, Passam bhayankaya sankharang, pasya sissameti sikkati. That we train ourselves seeing this tranquility. Tranquility we do not deliberately or forcefully arouse. When the things happen in this way naturally, the mind becomes calm, relaxed, and tranquil. And this leads to happiness. Happiness leads to further calm, peaceful state, and that leads to concentration. When a happy mind gains concentration, as Buddha says, Sukhino Chittang Samadhyati, Sukhino, the one who is, one whose mind is filled with happiness, Chittang Samadhyati, the mind gets concentration. When mind gains concentration, this concentrated mind can see the subtlest changes taking place in our body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. This is the truth that we experience. This nobody can deny, nobody can refuse, nobody, if mindful, can ignore it. And therefore, let us see how this happens and see when we see all these changes, all these are impermanent, our notion of self, which is supposed to be something permanent, will no longer be there because nothing we find permanent in our life, in the five aggregates. And therefore, we will be able to overcome the notion of self. With this, we continue our practice and see how successful we all will be. Dukkha patta ca nirdukkha bhaya patta ca nibbhaya soka patta ca nisoka hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this metta thought in mind, let us try to understand the answers to these questions that people have posted and now they are printed. The first question is Veditabbo. Could you please explain the meaning of the Pali term Veditabbo? The term is found in many places in Dhamma. For example, Pacchattam Veditabbo, Kamanang Vipakang Veditabbo, Kamma Nirodho Veditabbo. Veditabba means to be realized. Pacchattam Veditabbo is personally realizable by the full word is Pacchattam Veditabbo Vinyohi, to be realized by the wise. Veditabba means to be realized. It is used in passive voice. The word is vid. It comes from the root vid to know. Vid to know. From this root arises Veda, Vedana, or Vidya, and these words derive from this root, vid, to know. Vedeti is the active nominative, an active third person singular, Vedeti. So that is the meaning of the word Veditabba, to be realized. And the next question is, Bhante, I have read that feelings and perceptions perceptions that arise from contact with the sense base are automatic because they are the results of all karmas, the results of our underlying tendencies, and we cannot control them. It is only if we do not act on these feelings that we do not produce new karmas. How does this work? Feeling, although you may say automatic, feeling is not automatic. Feeling arises due to the combination of four things. That is senses, sensory object, consciousness, contact, and feeling. Surely feeling arises depending on these four factors. And we cannot say all the feelings are the results of our karma, a previous karma. Uh, we may have inadvertently, we may step on a nail or a rock or thorn. Then we have feeling, painful feeling. That is not the results of previous karma. That is the results of being unmindful of this moment, and we are not careful. And you may say carelessness is unwholesome karma. In this very moment, it happens. So therefore, we may not be say we may not say that pain or the feeling, all feelings are due to past karma. We have to remember uh, the the Buddha's teaching is not a kind of fatalism. If we say all the feelings are due to past karma, then we are fatalistic, which is not the right way to look at the feeling. Some feeling can arise due to past karma, not all of them. Uh, for instance, in the past, uh, some enlightened monks had feelings, bodily aches and pains. When we grow old people have more feelings, painful feeling particularly, unpleasant feelings. That is not due to past karma, that is due to our old age, which is common to all living beings. You may say, if you were to be a very fatalistic person, you may say, yes, the body, we are born with this body because of our past karma. To that extent, birth is due to past karma is true, but every feeling that we have uh, is not due to past karma. For instance, this COVID-19 is so devastating every life, and without our awareness, somebody we may meet somebody who is asymptomatic, does not show any symptoms of COVID-19, and yet, due to our social contact, uh, neither the carrier of the disease nor we are aware of the, the disease or virus. Therefore, it happens inadvertently, and therefore, this then we have painful feeling, and that is not due to past karma. It is just as it is due to this unexpected thing that happened, this epidemic uh, happened. So that is my answer to your question. Next is you say, I also have read in some suttas that the Buddha instructed us not to grasp at the signs and features of sense objects. Thus, not grasping at the signs and features, not engaging ourselves with the sense objects we have contacted, mean that we know feeling produced. Yes, if we do not contact at all, no feeling can arise. Whatever feeling arises, it depends on contact, based on contact, whether subtle or gross, low or high feeling we experience, that feeling is due to contact. Say, for instance, you have a headache. You might ask, what have I contacted to have a headache? Of course, there are certain mucus changes, nervous system functioning, and therefore these things can contact one another. And when we take certain medicines that become disengaged, discontacted, and separated, then the headache will fade away that moment. Like that, whenever there is a contact, I don't know that much physics or chemistry or physiology or biology to explain how headache takes place. But I know for sure there must be something in our head, in brain, sinus area, something contact to block our blood circulation properly, which causes headache. And therefore, there must be a contact in order to produce this painful results. Similarly, when we have a peaceful experience, peaceful feeling, we also know that our mind becomes relaxed and calm and let things happen very naturally. So the mind always contacts this pleasant, peaceful state that produce peaceful, happy feelings. Next part of your question, does that mean that the feelings are not necessarily automatic? Yes, feelings are not automatic. Feeling arises depending on those factors. Which of these two methods is the higher and more advanced one, or are these methods used or different for different consciousness or reasons? I don't know what kind of method you use, but we only have to understand the feeling is not automatic. Feeling arises due to contact. When there is no contact, that particular feeling will no longer be there. But how we use the feeling as a part of our meditation. I mentioned day before yesterday, and even previously, day before yesterday, I said there are 108 kind of feelings. All these feelings, one by one, we must watch as they arise, as they persist, and as they pass away. They are rising and vanishing and altering, rising, altering, vanishing, rising, altering, vanishing, rising, altering, vanishing, shows that the feeling is impermanent. So seeing impermanence of the feeling, we can deal with feeling, we can use feeling as an object of our impermanence, which is the key word I repeated every day in our meditation to make the mind liberated from the notion of I, my, mine. In other words, notion of self. You remember I repeatedly mentioned this in the past. When the Buddha delivered his first sermon, even though he did not mention the word impermanence, Venerable Kondanya listening to that sermon, so Buddha mentioning, he heard Buddha mentioning Samudaya Dhamma, Vaya Dhamma. The greed arises and greed passes away. When greed arises, suffering arises. When greed passes away, suffering disappears. So this shows rising and falling. Greed rising means rising. Greed failing is fading away means falling. So rising and falling. So he noticed the suffering or dukkha, of course, is a feeling. Dukkha is a feeling. It arises and it passes away. Seeing this reality, he attained the stream entry at the end of that sermon. So the way to deal with feeling of any kind is to see its impermanent nature. Then what kind of practitioners will find this method useful? The method I mentioned. Okay. Next question is please be kind enough to go through mind and mind objects and body as mind objects, and there are differences. Mind as mind objects, body as mind objects. Mind, I mentioned, you cannot know the mind in isolation. Mind always arises with an object. That is why when we discuss the section on mindfulness of the mind, we saw saragan chittan pajanati. Vitaragan chittan pajanati. Like that. The mind arises with its contents. We notice the content to notice the mind. When the greed arises, mind arises with the greed. So we know this mind is with greed. When anger or hatred arises, mind arises at that moment. Therefore, at that moment, we know this is hateful mind. When the mind is full of confusion, we notice that this is confused mind. When the mind is free from confusion, we know that this particular state is free from confusion. When confusion is there, you know the mind is confused. When the confusion is not there, you know mind is not confused. So, like that, whenever you experience, whenever you pay attention to the mind, you have to notice what is in the mind, what arises with the mind. Mind alone you cannot notice. Mind does not exist by itself without the support of, without something else. In the mentality, materiality description of the dependent origination, mentality has 5 factors, materiality has 4 factors. All of them works with the mind. Without mind, in this living beings, aggregates don't work. Now, Then you ask part of the question, objects, body as mind objects. Body as mind objects. Whenever you think of a body, you might have seen millions and millions of bodies in your life. With your eyes, you see bodies. Human bodies, animal bodies, trees, rocks, mountains, waters, pictures, photographs, sceneries, road, vehicles, millions and millions of things you might have seen. They all are forms. Where are they now? They all are in your mind. All these forms are in your mind. You say, so you for instance, you saw the opera theatre in Australia, in Sydney. Now you are living in maybe in California or Washington D.C. Opera House is in Sydney, and this appears in your mind because you have either seen it or heard of it. If you have heard, you have the description in your mind. Description also, you can form using the description you can form an opera house. If you have seen it, that picture is in your mind. So that becomes your mind object. You can see any country, any person, anything in your mind. Then that object in your mind is the mind object or mental object of the body. The a country, a person is a body. And that body is no longer with you, but the memory is in your mind. So the memory becomes an object of that particular practice. So this is how the body becomes mind objects, the memory. Okay, there is another question. So it is mind object. So is mind creates through the four elements? Is mind created through the four elements? The four elements do not create the mind. All objects in the world has four elements. The fact that they all have elements does not mean that they all have mind. Mind elements arises not only because of the elements, but because of our what you call sankhara. Sankhara means activities, deliberate activities that we perform, and those activities in this life, activities of the aggregates, activities of our senses, create the mind, and that instant it disappears. Every moment an activity, whatever activity takes place, that moment mind arises. When the activity is over, mind consciousness is over. Activity doesn't mean that a large amount or even very tiniest, minutest, the nanosecond time and action appears and disappears. During that time, in that particular moment, consciousness or mind arises, and that becomes mind element. Mind element. The other question also is related to this. Let me read that question. What is consciousness element and mind elements? What are their differences and their functions? Mind elements is called mano. In the Dhammapada it says Mano Pubbangama Dhamma, mind elements or mind leads all the mental phenomena. Uh, Therefore, just like other elements, we talk about earth element. We talk about earth element, but we do not see earth element. Only through the characteristics of earth element we infer that this must be earth element. Earth element, for instance, is hardness. When we when we touch, we feel hardness. Through that we know that this is earth element, but we do not see that. Although we live on earth, we work with earth, our body is full of earth elements, but we cannot see them. But even when we touch our two fingers, when two fingers come together, we feel the hardness there, and through that we know this is the characteristic of earth element, so forth. So the mind elements is not like that. Earth element you can touch. Mind element is you cannot even touch. You feel mind elements. That is the difference. Now, consciousness and consciousness elements. Mind elements and consciousness elements. Mano dhatu, mano vijnana dhatu. Mano dhatu is mind elements. Mano vijnana dhatu means consciousness element. Among 18 elements, these are two. Chakku dhatu, rupa dhatu, chakku vijnana dhatu. Like that, mano dhatu, dhamma dhatu, mano vijnana dhatu. Like that, each sense, through each sense there are three elements, dhatus. And therefore, for six senses, we have 18 elements. So, mind elements is the very first, it is actually incalculably powerful, quick moment that mind begins to activate. That very first moment, which I cannot explain what the moment is, and when it happens, we can at least infer, understand the very first moment consciousness arises. That is called consciousness element. Consciousness element, of course, is sometimes much easier than to understand mind elements. Mind elements is the very first moment of consciousness element. And therefore, you have to understand the very first moment of consciousness is consciousness element or mind element. And when the mind element come in contact with the mind object, the Dhamma, then consciousness elements arises. Dhamma here also means every mind object is Dhamma. Any mind object is Dhamma. We are listening to a talk, and eventually this talk, the sound will, we can recall, and that moment the mind elements contact this sound of the talk, and then consciousness element arises. Then consciousness keeps growing, and therefore we say that we are conscious of that particular sound. But these three happens: mind elements, Dhamma elements, mind consciousness elements are the extremely speedy, powerful three moments. And these three moments are so quickly happening that you have no way to measure it. That is why I think if you, some of you may be psychologists, psychoanalysts, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and so on and so forth, all dealing with the mind, cannot make any experiment with the mind. Cannot make any experiment with the mind because mind changes so quickly. Uh, and therefore, this so quickly changing mind moments are elements. Mind elements, Mano Dhatu, Mano Vijnana Dhatu, and Dhamma Dhatu. Dhamma Dhatu, the mind objects elements, then mind element, mind objects element, and consciousness element. Out of all these things, the first thing is mind element. That's called Mano Pubbangama Dhamma. Mano Pubbangama Dhamma. Or the mind elements leads all the dhammas that is there. So friends, I think this may be enough for today's answers. I hope I answered your question. You may recall them and reflect on them and think more carefully and continue your practice. Now I want to wish again those who are suffering from COVID-19. Every day we hear people, more and more people are affected by this virus. We want to send our utmost metta to all of them to be free from this virus and return to regular normal health, continue their Dhamma practice, and liberate themselves from all sufferings. There are people who are still grieving the death of their loved ones. We also want to wish them to be free from that grief and continue their Dhamma work and be liberated themselves from grief, sorrow, lamentation, and pain, and live long and understand Dhamma and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. There are many very compassionate doctors, nurses, and hospital staffs all over the world trying to help these uh, patients. May they continue their very wonderful, compassionate service without themselves being affected by this virus and live long in good health to continue their wonderful service. There are many people who are very generous supporting these projects, these institutions, individuals to recover from their pain and suffering. May they continue to be generous and may they also live long in good health without any discomfort and pain. And then there are leaders who are doing very well in some places, and due to the nature of this virus, even they cannot control it. It happens all over the world. Some people say this is the second wave, which is more powerful than the first one. However, we want to wish them to be successful, treating themselves and others, live long in good health. There are other leaders also do their own work to curb and reduce this virus, the effect of it, and may they continue to have patience, courage, understanding, determination, and wisdom to make right decision to help the world. Thank you, friends, for coming and helping us to continue this service. Okay? Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bhante.
Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Bhante.
Bante.
Sadhu,
It
sadhu,
was a
Sadhu,
nice.
sadhu.
sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank
Peachy
you.
Kodera,
Have
Bhante.
a wonderful day.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bante. Thank
Bante.
you for
Thank you,
coming.
Bye.
Bante.
God bless you.